talk about Loki. That was kind of a little preview for you guys. I've got AJ and Pon from the design team here with me. How you guys doing?
All right, just working from home. It's pretty nice.
Definitely. So we'll kind of go ahead and kick things
Pon, you're
off
muted.
here. So, oh, we lost Pon again.
He's
Is
just
this
muted.
better?
There he
There we
is.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Like it. Awesome. Cool. So about a month ago, if you guys missed it out on social media, we tweeted out a kind of rework proposal, if you want to call it that, about Loki. We know Loki's been a god that's been a point of contention in the community almost since his existence, right? We kind of took some efforts from the design team to kind of come up with a rework that we thought would be fun, and we kind of presented it to the community. AJ and Pond, you guys kind of want to go into detail on like what the goals from the rework were?
I don't want to bring up too much of because that was a really long post on its own.
Yeah.
Really, what we're here today is to talk about the community reaction and some of the concerns. And
Yes.
Pon and I are going to go into a little bit more detail on the proposed design, hopefully make people feel better about those concerns. Quick recap, I guess, was we proposed a Loki rework. Our number one goal was to reduce frustration. The plan that we had come up with to do this was to slow down the time it takes for Loki to burst unsuspecting victims, or at least give his victims a better warning about his abilities and better visual feedback or audio feedback. We also want to reduce his split push, and we wanted to, those are the two main things, really.
Yep.
Those are the two main things, right, Pon?
Yeah, and the big thing is we were trying to identify what we could keep for Loki to make sure that Loki still felt like Loki to players. But we also wanted to identify things that we felt were going to be continual points of frustration that would make him not something that we could really balance around ever. So that's largely what the rework proposal was, and then we want to go into more detail about how we feel like we're accomplishing that, and to ease some concerns that players might have around like how we're trying to adjust these numbers.
Exactly. So we're not going to get into all the details of read the goals of a rework and the methodology for a rework. If you want to just learn more about that, you can also go back and double check the Loki post. There's a lot of information here. So what we really want to do today is just what were people concerned about, and how are we going to work within that, right? Because we wanted to get community feedback. We're doing this rework a little differently. We're involving the community more. We think that's really cool. But we have to kind of moderate each step of the process. So this is just the next phase. So I've got another long post, almost as long as the first one. It wasn't supposed to be this long, but I wanted to give thorough discussion. So let's just jump right into it. The first,
let's go ahead and start with the first ability.
Well, just general is people maybe were a little concerned that we're changing Loki too much. So I wanted to mention that we are aware of that concern. I think there's going to be some amount of people that will not be satisfied with any amount of change because they're just so happy with the current Loki. But we did already, talk about that we need to change him. And hopefully when we read some of these details, people will see in each ability that maybe these changes aren't as extreme as they were imagining. But we're going to try to be more specific about that. So, okay, let's jump into ability 1.
Yep. So the first ability, Vanish. This is more of like a minor rework, right? But this is the Loki takes a little bit longer to go invisible, and then when he's hit, he actually takes a little bit of damage and flickers into existence, and then flickers back out. And we were kind of vague with our numbers on this, but I guess we can go over some of the things that, like, as we would go through this process of reworking him, what kind of numbers we'd look at to tweak and change, and then also our kind of goals on why we feel like this is healthy as a whole.
Right. So people were concerned that if Loki could flicker when he takes damage, he's gonna be too easy to see, right?
Yes.
Right.
But really, high-level Loki players can already see the numbers and follow those, right? So this change might not even make that much of a difference at high-level play because people are pretty good at following Loki. But this will hopefully even out his skill gap a little bit. And there's going to be two main variables we really have control over this, right? The amount of time it takes him to fade when he casts Vanish, and the amount of time he is revealed when he takes damage. We could change those to be really, really short time windows, right? So they're really quick flickers. So it's really like no problem to make this. We have a lot of tuning, a lot of balance, a lot of ways to adjust this. And our goal would really be make those visuals to be the shortest or quickest possible, right?
Yeah, we want to make sure that Loki players still feel like they can stealth and reliably juke. But in the same way that right now, if Jean-Claude cards you, or if a Cuckoo Tornado is you, I guess Cuckoo Tornado is a little different, but those number of pop-ups that occur, you can follow the direction they're going, and they give you a little bit of information before they fade out and don't stay relevant to his movement. Our goal is to have that similar feeling with these flickers, where it gives you some information, but it quickly fades out, that you have to then recalculate your decision making, recalculate your aim to try and hit him again.
We also have a lot of people concerned about how different types of hits will apply to it, and we'll be able to work through those, on a case by case basis to see what feels good. So our goal is to really make this as quick and as short as possible, so that you still get a little bit more visibility. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not going to be like a second reveal every time he takes damage. It'll be very, very brief.
All right. That's pretty much it for ability 1. That one's pretty light. Ability 2 has so if they kind of increase as you go, ability 2 has more concerns than ability 3 has a lot of them.
Yeah. So ability 2 was the decoy rework. And I wrote down the name Agonizing Venom. And this is the deployable that does tick damage. And then if you stay in it for too long, you get blinded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this ability, I think the big concerns that people had were enemies could just walk out of the ability and Loki had no way of keeping players in it. The ability won't be able to body block enemies or minions anymore, as well as it might just be visually busy, kind of and noisy and confusing. But the goal here would be that one, Loki can reliably toss on someone and actually have it be meaningful, where they have to make a decision to really get out quickly or not. It also, there's potentially new use cases for this ability, right? Like if someone tries to box Loki, they're fighting more directly one-on-one, Loki drops on top of himself, that person can no longer stay there, because not only previously they could just be like, oh, a burst of damage is about to happen, I could like Aegis it or leap to immune it at the last second. Now it's this consistent, persistent threat that's there that again can amplify Loki's damage later on. So there's definitely use cases there. And then we were also open to the idea of it being able to body block enemies and minions in the same way that decoy currently can. So if you're using it in the same way that you like to right now, which is enemies trying to flee from you, they're cutting a corner and you body block them to trap them in that corner. Well, you've probably not only body blocked them and trapped them there, you've caught back up to them, but now they're potentially stuck to where they had to hard pivot and try and get out, and they might be poisoned now. So there's a lot of timing things that essentially what I'm getting at is there's a lot of timing things and use cases that we can try during development to make sure this feels like an ability that can be utilized effectively. Tick rate, how many stacks it takes to get the poison applied to you, stuff like that.
Right. So yeah, this ability has a lot of different balance variables, specifically deploy time, tick rate, duration of the deployable, so the number of possible ticks, the number of stacks it requires to blind. It could also have a persistent effect on it, since it is going to be a persistent deployable. It could have something like a persistent slow. We could have all of those things we can balance, because we do want this ability to have a rather high chance to blind people.
Yes.
A lot of people were concerned about, like you brought up, the different types of use cases. So, certain abilities in Smite we like to use for zoning. We like other ones to be more direct skill shots. This one, we don't really want people to drop on them opponents directly and then expect to get the max output. We want you to have to use a little bit of your tactics and surroundings to make it the most effective, but it certainly could be balanced so that it worked that way, right?
Yeah.
Like if it was completely useless. And also, yeah, we totally heard the feedback about people being concerned about the blocking volume from the current decoy, and we're happy to include that in the new ability. We'll still be able to block player movement as well as projectiles, so you high-level Loki players can still use this for some of those cool plays. And then finally, I think just a point that a lot of people didn't really bring up, just to expand a little on Pon-Pons, is that Loki could really benefit from a zoning ability. Right now, people aren't really afraid to like run right through the decoy or run past it, so people don't really get to use that. But like when Loki's chasing someone down or is trying to route them to a specific spot where he can really get an advantageous jump on them, having an ability that's really going to make people not want to path through a certain jungle path could be really powerful.
Yep.
I think this ability sounds really cool and really flavorful still. A lot of people really liked the lore nod. We have some cool ideas on how to make this visually really awesome, just with Loki, animating there, and everybody getting feeling the pain of Loki's history.
Exactly. I know a lot of people were excited about another blind in the game as well.
True. Yeah, we've been getting that forever. A lot of that feedback forever. So that'll be really nice too.
Cool. You guys ready to just hop on to ability 3?
Yeah, let's keep it rolling.
Yeah. And this one probably has a lot of the concern that some players had.
Definitely. Yeah, so this one was the cone attack.
Yes.
Yes. So high level Loki players, I would say even like medium to high, are familiar with Loki's main damage combo being aim strike and enabling him to basic attack reset. And players felt like losing this basic attack cancel is going to feel like I'm getting my damage out slower. I don't have the ability to do similar kind of like burst damage in small windows. But we were looking at it, and the big thing that we wanted to try and do with 3 was Loki's immediate burst damage was one of the main points of frustration. People felt like they didn't have time to react to that damage output. A lot of damage in our game doesn't come out that fast, and Loki was kind of the exception to that. And so we wanted to give him an ability that felt like he could utilize effectively for jungle clear. He could utilize effectively on targets that he found isolated and find chances to channel this on, but for its damage to be a little more spread out than the current aim strike burst combo. I know in this text post that AJ has, we basically got aim strike damage comes out in about 0.5 to 1 second, depending on how quick you are with reaction times and handling basic attacks. Loki's basic attack at minimum is 0.25 pre-fire, so if you cancel it perfectly, it is 0.5 minimum to get the damage out.
Right.
And we're looking at that kind of damage output and seeing what we need to do. Maybe we need to amp that damage up if it's going to happen over 1.5 seconds. Maybe we need to have it more front-loaded so that it feels more bursty, but then resolves a little bit later, so some of the damage is delayed. But the goal is to make sure that Loki has a good ability. It's good for jungle clear. It feels good in combat, but it doesn't do all its damage in 0.5 seconds.
And I'm really happy with how we were able to go into when you see the text version really detailed, fractions of a second, 0.25 seconds and 0.5, and we did some like rough comparisons of how this ability could deal damage and how much time compared to what he does now. And I think you'll see that we have the power to adjust it and balance it to make it pretty similar. Like the rough draft that I put here is, likely with human reaction time, you're doing a basic attack, then canceling with the aim strike, and then another basic attack in something like 0.7, 0.8 seconds, which is 3 hits of burst damage. And with the new proposal, you'll still get a basic attack followed by which you can cancel into the ability, so you'll still get 4 hits. And the time we were proposing was it would only take about 1.75 seconds, maybe 2 seconds. That'd be 2 seconds would be a good bit slower, I guess you could say, almost 1 whole second slower, but we're mostly looking in that range, like 1 whole second slower max, which that's a pretty small window of time to be working with. And we're going to be giving you an extra hit, and we're going to be letting people hit AoE, things like that. Like I know a lot of the people are seeing some of this part of the kits as nerfs, but a lot of these changes are being buffed as well. So it's important to see that those shifts are done on purpose. That's like an important part of a successful rework.
Yeah, I think a lot of people when they especially when they look at like text kit that don't have specific numbers, which is we posted non-specific numbers because when we go into a rework situation or when we're developing a character, right, like we're sitting there and we're tweaking timings throughout the entire process. We're tweaking damage numbers through the entire process. Our goal is for Loki to feel like he has a really good ability, not just to feel like he's Loki, but just nerfed in every way, right? So this ability's scaling could be significantly higher than what aim strike currently is, but because it happens over time, it can justify having that extra scaling to make sure it feels like a balanced ability. So that's the kind of stuff that we look at.
Yeah, for sure. We look at a lot of a god's feel and power level, and I've said this on camera before, but the hit area and the speed is so much more important than the damage number and the scaling. Like those things are really important, and we spend a lot of time iterating and design on them. And it's understandable for players who are reading this to not really know where we're going to go with it. But the people comparing this type of pitch to like Anubis Plague of Locusts, like this ability is going to feel absolutely nothing like that. That's crazy. And like just to sidetrack a little bit, we should have covered this at the beginning, and I have this written in the text post, is that people were really excited to see us change Loki. People seem to really want it. There also are people just kind of actively cheering for his downfall, for him to be like nerfed or removed, and that is totally not our goal. Generally speaking, historically speaking, after rework, Loki is probably going to be stronger and more popular than he's ever been in like a long time, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he's probably going to be really strong and really popular. And we think that as long as he's not split pushing, and as long as his stealth is counterable and has counterplay for when he ambushes you, then that's going to be a great success. We think those aspects are what makes him completely unfun. That's why he's had to be nerfed to the ground. That's why, only a few players in the game can play him and actually win the game. We want people to be able to contribute to a team, but not be absolutely miserable to play against, right?
Yeah.
So we are not just trying to over nerf Loki. I wrote it right here in the post. We do not want to over nerf Loki, and we do not want to change him beyond recognition. Our goal is to simply reduce the frustration players feel when playing against him. So to recap for ability 3, we can make this ability still fire very quickly, but still have better visual feedback than the current in-hand cancel ability combo, right? This ability will still incentivize using a basic attack cancel into it. So maybe it doesn't string 2 basics, but it still heavily involves the concept of canceling. A lot of players felt like we were kind of taking that away with this pitch, but you will still definitely want to cancel into this ability. It will be a similar amount of damage as the current aim strike combo, but only take a slightly longer amount of time, maybe 1 whole second, to do it. This ability also, there's a couple things here that I'm not going to promise, but we're going to experiment with. This ability could trigger basic attack item effects or ability item effects or both. So that's a whole lot of different itemization options we can play with just with that one rule. We could also let this ability trigger Vanish's stim, which is essentially a basic attack bonus. So it kind of falls to the similar point, but that's a big decision. We can make Loki immune to sidestep and backpedal penalties while channeling this, which is just a cool way to be able to juke or actually like disengage and get a few hits off as you're pulling away, which is pretty sweet. We could also make Loki move faster while doing this. So you could even use this for other things like catching up to someone, even if you're not damaging them, or running away. So these are all things that we could do. This ability has a lot of potential to be really powerful. This isn't just a clear nerf. Just trying to make this whole document is phrased in a way to get people to understand that.
Yeah, we essentially posted this at a point where we were getting the rough, here's what we want the abilities to do and here's what we think we need to change. And normally we'd go a step further and start really getting some rough numbers in, some rough timings in, exactly what we change. And we posted to the community before that just so you guys could see it. This is us kind of expanding more about like what we'd be looking to do.
Yeah.
Right. All right, so on to the ultimate, last one.
Yeah, last one.
Ultimate. So the concerns for this one was it could take too long to fire, right? So we are adding a quick hit into the stun rather than just immediately having the stun. So it could take too long to fire, be too easy to avoid. If it feels too nerfed, it might just lead to it being only used in escape. So rather than ever using it offensively or to peel for a teammate, maybe its default use case is just to ult out of there as a like mini blink, right? And then this ability will no longer be able to quickly interrupt or peel for teammates. So this one is largely, again, we kind of want to go into why this was frustrating, which was it had very little reaction time. From being cast to being on a target is 0.3 seconds, which is generally below what we'd expect people to have kind of like reaction time to.
That's the travel plus the animation.
Yeah.
Before the hit. It's very quick.
So the player who's playing Loki is about 0.3. The player who's being hit by Loki actually has a little bit less time to react to that because they have to first see the puff of smoke happen and clear, and Loki's there. He's already partially way into that animation. So in most cases, people reacted to it by beadsing and Aegising because they had already been stunned. Because
that's what happens if you use it late, because it's almost impossible to get that Aegis off in time.
Yeah, you have to. Most players who actually counter are doing it by seeing Loki and anticipating that's happening, versus reacting to something that has happened. Which we want to generally have players have ability to react time. It can be hard. It can be very difficult to react to, but we generally want to have that timing there so that people can react to it. And that's largely what the change was focused on.
Right.
It's to really address that frustration of feeling like you didn't have any reaction time, especially if you came out of anywhere that was unwarded. Make sure that players feel like they can kind of see the damage happening, resolve the damage, but we want to give Loki more flexibility when he's using it there, which is why he can re-aim the stun component. The stun component could potentially be more of a larger AoE to make sure it hits more targets if they're really, really grouped up. We can also look at things like, for example, that initial hit might also have damage component on its own. So maybe this ability actually does more damage on its own because it does have more reaction time.
Right.
These are the kind of things that we look at to make sure that players feel like they have the ability to counter and fight against it if they're really skilled, but make sure that when Loki does land it, Loki finds opportunities to use it effectively. It is justifiably rewarding compared to what it currently is.
So yeah, in a similar vein, this will be slowed down, but only a small amount. We're talking like 1 second max. We really just want to slow it down just enough for people to better be able to react to it, and that really it only takes fractions of a second. And to make up for that little slowdown, we're also planning on adding that bonus CC when he first teleports in between that and the hit, to make it so it kind of relies more on God movement or relic base to dodge it. We don't just want people getting out of it in a million different ways. And once we do that, we can make the damage higher for sure, because or even the stun effect more potent, because there'll be a better time to react to it. And we can play a lot with that kind of that warm up time, that initial time. That doesn't have to just be a cripple. It could be a slow or a silence in addition to it, to make sure that there's like this fun little mini game where Loki's just showed up on you and he's ready to assassinate you, and the opponent has like a very quick amount of time to try to react to it, dodge it, or juke or fake it out. And also we plan on even letting this one be AoE hit as well. So this has a lot of potential to be more powerful. Honestly, we just want this little bit of animation time for players to understand what's going on. Like, it's really what we're doing on this kit.
Yeah, and I think a good way to put it is like, let's say I take the ult 0.3 seconds, the resolve time, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's pretty short, into a basic attack 3 basic attack, Vanish basic attack. So that'd be 0.3 plus, let's just say 0.5. So 0.8, 1.05, 1.3, 1.55. So let's say you have perfect human reaction time. You can execute the Loki burst combo with all your abilities and dump a full thing 1.55 seconds. We're talking about bringing it up to 2 to 2.5. We're not talking about bringing it up to 4 or 5 or 6 seconds. We're looking.
And very rarely do you need all of that to kill someone, right?
Yeah,
that's extreme.
So we're looking to bring some timing to that, and then we're also willing to give these abilities maybe some unique aspects so they can be utilized in effective ways, maybe increasing damage here or there to make sure that the extra time is rewarded. But yeah, that's about like the change in like that like kind of Loki playstyle where you're just jumping on someone from stealth. It should feel very similar, but the enemy should also feel like they have a bit more control on fighting back.
Right, exactly. So to sum up, like we are going to be doing the Loki rework as planned. We're gonna keep moving forward with it. It's probably gonna launch around mid-season or a little later. We do not want to just nerf Loki. We know that people want him adjusted. We know that there's a lot of memeing and joking out there about just remove or delete him, but that's not our goal. We're just trying to do slight adjustments to mitigate his frustration, and we'll be pairing each of those things that feel like a nerf. He'll be gaining buffs in other ways or similar ways of things he likes to do. Kill people, better jungle clear, things like that. We're trying to make sure that this god is in a healthy place, because this is a really popular character, right? This is a really loved and hated. There's a huge amount of people who love to play this character and just want a character who could be viable, but we cannot make the current version viable without upsetting an overwhelming majority of our players. So hopefully these slight adjustments will put us in the right place, and Loki will feel more fair and more like the rest of the assassins in the kit as far as reacting to them. But you'll have to react to a whole different set of cues and ambushes and play style. You'll have to react to differently, but it will be at a similar level of fairness as the other assassins in the game.
Cool. And I know AJ has spent a ton of time working on a super log blog post. We do plan to release these notes in written format a little bit later.
That's yes, right, so I have this all written. No, I've got it all prepped. It's all it's Reddit format complete. Cool. Only took me a while for all the asterisks and stuff. That's all gonna be posted. I'm gonna post it immediately after we're done here.
Yep. So just keep an eye out on that on the SMITE Reddit, on social media. We'll be sure to give it a retweet. Pawn, AJ, you guys got anything else before we wrap things up?
I mean, I see a lot of people spamming about the next god, but we're not going to talk about that today. You just have to wait. It'll be coming soon.
Yep. I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and be sure. I know this was a little hard to follow. It's a lot of things to discuss. So check out the blog post. I think it'll help people see more clearly this individual bullet points we were covering and the concerns that we're really trying to. We tried to collect literally all of the negativity. It was mostly positivity about the update for his rework, but we tried to collect all of that negativity, put it all into a document, and address each single one line by line. Like we really tried. So hopefully people feel better when they read it.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much, AJ and Pond, for taking the time out. Thanks, chat, for hanging out with us. That wraps it up. Be on the lookout on social media for that big blog post from AJ with a little bit more insight on the written notes. That wraps it up here for us on the Loki Dev Insight Show. But we've got This Month in SMITE coming up next for you guys. So be sure to keep it locked here on Twitch or Mixer.